hello, everybody. Back here today with Dr. Scott Hannen. And I think it's important because we've talked a lot about nanonutrients recently and, health and wellness. But, let's talk about the man behind the product, behind the inspiration, behind all that health and wellness. And Dr. Scott, I just go ahead and quickly introduce yourself for people who are hopping on it and don't know you too well.
Yeah. Okay. Again, I like to tell everybody I don't consider myself special by any means, but I am inquisitive, and I have always had a passion from the earliest age to be able to understand about the human body and how it works. And that's what kind of led me down the path to being a physician to begin with. It's really kind of funny because growing up, I would be termed probably one of the sickest kids you've ever seen. I was on an antibiotic almost every week. I either had a throat infection, I had a sinus infection, my ear infections all the time. And I just almost lived on antibiotics. And so, I had spinal meningitis and almost died at 4. I've had my appendix out, I've had my tonsils out. Just go down the list. And so even fillings in my teeth, I've had all my teeth with fillings. And so it was around 13 years old, I started, my buddy of mine invited me to the gym. And I started going to the gym, working out with him. And when I did, you start hanging around that environment, different people start talking about eating a certain way. Well, if you're going to work out, you got to put some protein back in the body. And some, I'd never heard that before. And then, next thing you know, you want to stay away from this. You want to try to eat more of this. And they started teaching me how kind of to eat a little bit. Well, just from those adjustments, because I lived on junk food. I was drinking colas and I was hammering candy. And, I just thought that's what you did. Well, they started saying, take that junk out of your diet. Well, when I just started making those small adjustments, guess what? I wasn't getting sore throats anymore. I wasn't getting ear infections. I didn't have, Lord, it was so long there for a while. It'd been a couple of years without even having an antibiotic. And that was just unheard of for me. Well, of course, I got more and more. I got in depth in training, and I used to train very hard. I have my whole life, actually. But it led me into my path. And so, when I got through school, graduate school, and I did my undergraduate studies, graduate studies, and I finally got my doctorate, I had learned so much. I was intrigued the whole time I was through school because, I wanted to find a better way. And I didn't want to just always have to take drugs to feel better. I knew that by making adjustments in things like diet and all, that those sicknesses went away and I didn't have to take any more pills. So I wanted to go more the natural route. And my father had always talked about chiropractic. And so that's why I ended up going into chiropractic school for my doctorate. And, but when I got that, I found out that, I love chiropractic. I think it's one of the best things that was ever invented. But there's more. There's much more. Okay. And so I realized that when I graduated. When I was there, I studied under the best of the best. Every technique that's taught on a chiropractic campus, I went and I learned from the people who developed those techniques. Now they're dead. Most of those people are dead now. But there was Pierce technique. I learned that from Dr. Pierce. I learned my Thompson from Dr. Clay Thompson. I learned my activator from Dr. Ford, who's still alive, and I know him well. My point is, we can go down the list, but I've always been intrigued, and I want to know all the way down to the minutia of something on how it works and why it works. Okay. So then take that. Then I started getting into functional neurology. And Dr. Ted Carrick, who I think is one of the brightest men in this world, I went through, their whole functional neurology program and, got over, you need 300 hours for the board. I've got 385 hours logged, in clinical neuroscience, which is functional neuroscience, and all understanding how the brain works with the body. Then I wanted to know more about internal disorders. So I took my, 300-hour, these are button seat hours, these are trainings, these are tested. And then, you have to take the board certifications and all. And so I'm currently board certified in internal disorders. And then also in nutrition, through the ACBN. And again, these are hours that you vest and you learn, and you find that these are some of the best speakers in the world that are bringing some of the latest cutting edge technology. So I've always tried to stay on the cutting edge because I find out when you stay there, the most people get well. And then this led me into finding, I just started realizing, man, so many of these things that we're calling and we're trying to fix have so many things in common. Can't we narrow this down and start addressing some of these main things? And maybe a lot of these little things will go away. And that's exactly what started happening. Now, is there a time when you still have to treat a thyroid? Is there a time when you have to treat a pancreatic? Of course there are. But what about, that might be 5 to 10% of the time. What about the 80 to 90% of the people, that are out there, that how can we help them? I remember when I taught them to come off big three, come off of sugar, come off of grains, come off of dairy. Why? Because they're highly inflammatory foods, right? They're highly inflammatory. Everybody knows that. So we take those out of people's diets all the time, and man, they start losing weight. Their skin starts looking better. Their hair is feeling better. And it doesn't cost you a penny. It was like me when I was younger, making those dietary adjustments, and then getting so much better. Now, watch this, because I'm such a healthy eater, and I exercise, and I take my nutrients. I do everything that I know to do to have that advantage. My testimony is I'm the happiest, healthiest person I know. I haven't had an antibiotic, an aspirin, cough syrup, a Tylenol, anything, Advil, none of that in over 30 years now. So, what I'm telling you is the path that I chose. You want to ask about me and who I am. I am a product of people that are a lot smarter than me, that have poured into my life. And I've just kind of grabbed and pulled it all together and tried to make very hard topics more simplistic so I can help bless some people with that information. That's it.
Well, when did you be, we understand you're a pastor, if people aren't familiar. Have you always been a Christian? Has that always played a role in the direction of your life? Or is that something that you came to know God later in your life?
No, I'll tell you, I was raised, in a Christian environment, meaning I always knew about Jesus, but I was raised kind of on the street a bit. I come a little bit worldly, don't mind telling you, and I had sowed my oats, and, I went to back then I'd go to that altar and get forgiveness, and then, I'd fall, and, the typical up and down, Christian life. And I was laying there in bed one day, and I was president of the wildest fraternity on campus, 6 months before graduation, and still drinking, just, partying, doing crazy things that many times young men do. And I was staring at my ceiling in my bedroom, and I thought, if I was a patient, would I come to me for help? Oh, heck no. There's no way. I wouldn't come to me. And I said, man, I got to do something. And that day, I just laid it all down. From that day forward, and not that, whether people cuss or not is irrelevant, but every other word out of my mouth is used to cut. This has been over 30 years ago. 2 years ago, or probably since that happened. I don't drink. I don't cuss. God just took it all away. And I rededicated my life. And since that time, He's really, really helped me to understand some things through a path that I've been able to walk. And thank God I've been able to take a lot of people with me on that journey to health.
Well, and that's why it's such a perfect, dynamic for you to be appearing on Trinity Broadcast Network on January 26th, because they are going to be taking really both of those things that we talked about and putting them together. You're allowed to be open with your faith as well as your what made you you.
Yeah, and it's funny, if you watch the program, I don't ever like to tell any of the program, but Matt did ask me a question, and he asked me, he said, Scott, why don't you, tell them, what drove you, what drives you, what made you decide to do this and build this project, and tell us your heart on taking care of people and why this means so much to you. And you're going to have to watch the program to find that, because I really opened up my heart on another level, and I shared what I really believe and what I really feel. So that little segment's in there as well. And so if anybody wants to see that, you can watch that on January 26th.
Well, let's mention that before we go. I'm going to pop this up right here. Tell people when and where they can watch.
January 26th, this month, 7 o'clock Central Time. And it's on Coast to Coast. It's on prime time. It will air again a few hours later. If you want to check the schedule, you can go to drhannen.com on the website, where I will have that either posted today or tomorrow. And we'll have a schedule for the regular airing, because it'll air several times. But that main one is really the one that I hope everyone gets to watch on January 26th at 7 o'clock Central Time. If you're not going to be there, tape it. Trust me, when you see the material, you're probably going to want to watch it again. It's a lot of information. It's good information. It's information that can change your life. These are facts I'm quoting. These are talking about things that have the potential to really make a dramatic change in your health status.
All right, Dr. Scott, thank you very much again. We appreciate you kind of letting us dive in a little bit to what makes you you and what drives you. And we'll see you on the program, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.